I
Look at
like
this
the
backdrop.
yeah, I
I
love
love
the
it.
neon
Thank
sign.
you. I appreciate it. Pop Culture Planet, my little logo. Hi, I'm Kristen Maldonado from Pop Culture Planet. It's so great to meet you both. I'm so excited to talk with you guys because I love this show so much. I'm
Thank you.
obsessed. Nico's my favorite character. Um, and I have so many questions. But I wanted to start out with, you have a lot of newcomers in this cast. And I would love to hear kind of how they came together.
We had a very, very extensive casting process. We had, I believe, David, who was head of casting in Los Angeles, was also coordinating a casting director in Vancouver, New York, 2 in the UK, and 1 in Australia. So
Wow.
Warner Brothers cast a very wide net. We saw a lot of people, but the kind of core group of young people on our show, it was a lot of, the first time we saw them, we were like, that's the person. And then certainly when we put George and Jayden together, it was like instant best friend chemistry. So that's really carried into the show.
The connection was kind of instantaneous, really, and it kind of took care of itself. Jayden and I we first met during our chemistry read on Zoom, but we didn't properly meet until we were at Heathrow Airport together, flying out to film the pilot. And the rest is history, actually.
The rest was very easy to do. The scenes kind of spoke for themselves, and we kind of breezed through them as a pair. And everyone was like, God, these two must have known each other before this show. And Steve was like, no, these are two very random English guys who have never met each other before now. So yeah, go us.
For like Edwin, his journey of self-discovery around his sexuality, his romantic prospects is just really powerful throughout this season. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that journey for you.
I think what's great about this character and the way this journey's fleshed out is it is a discovery of sexuality for sure, and there's a real sense of awakening. But I think it kind of goes deeper than that. It's Edwin fundamentally learning how to love. He comes from a time period where, intimacy and PDA was frowned upon, even in straight relationships. So there's a real softening that he experiences, and he's basically learning how to love and how much he wants to be loved for the very first time, and that's what you see play out, hopefully, in the series.
For Charles, I mean, this is a guy who goes to hell and back for his best friend. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more just to that strong bond of like, sort of not even just brotherhood, but like just these two guys that are like so close that this is all they have is each other, and that bond there.
Well, it kind of goes for Charles's whole entire journey. I think, he starts off with like right where he loves being with his best friend of 30 years with a case, and you kind of get a deep dive into his brain and find out what he's been through, and he has a lot of conflict of trying to work out whether he's the good guy or the bad guy. And it's quite funny that towards the end of the series you see Edwin having to reassure Charles that he isn't a bad guy. And I mean, that episode speaks for itself. I mean, he's there wondering whether he's good or bad, but he's literally risked his entire existence to go save his best friend. And that's what it's all about, That's what the series is. It's about friendship and true love. I think love can be,
Comes in many forms, doesn't it?
exactly. It comes in many, many forms. And I think with Charles and Edwin, it's your first love, your best friend, and that's what they normally say, right? Is when you're younger,
Your first best friend can often be the same sex.
I was wondering if you guys had a favorite scene to bring to life this season.
I absolutely loved during the pilot filming the flashback to St. Hilarions, the boarding school, because, as an actor, you rarely get to experience your character's backstory in real time. And, they set dressed this former hospital into a Victorian school. So, there were blackboards of chalk and everybody was dressed to the right period. And it was actually really useful because I got to do that right at the start. So when I would, over the course of the series, when I was thinking back to, Edwin's circumstances, like way back when, it was like it had been a visceral experience. So that was really cool.
I think I'll go to the pilot as well when we filmed the tube carriage scene. obviously we were in Vancouver and they built this incredible tube set, and then we walked in just like, wow, this looks so much like a tube in London. And then the guy goes, oh no, wait, watch this, presses the button, and the whole thing just starts spinning. Being on that set and having to maneuver and imagine all the CGI, that was a crazy experience.
And I remember when we came home for Christmas, we came back to London, and the first time I stepped on a tube, I was like...
I get like vertigo.
I was texting these guys like, guys, something gonna happen.
Yours just needs to be Teethface.
Teethface. I mean, we're obsessed with Teethface in the room, on the screen.
I will say that with the way we broke that episode in particular with the giant mushroom, I did not know that it could talk. And then Beth turned in her script and it had a line of dialogue. And I was like, oh, the giant mushroom can talk. That's amazing. Yeah.
My favorite, actually, my other favorite part is Tragic Mick's backstory. I loved that. It was so sad. And he's such a fun character and so tragic, obviously. But getting to write kind of his backstory was also really cool, and doing all the animated sequences was really, really fun.
Oh, that's awesome. I think one of my favorites might have been Jenny and her date.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Jenny's date does not go
Also
well.
that.
I mean, if there's
Yes.
ever been a metaphor for dating in the 2020s, it's that episode.
The aesthetic of this show is so cool. Like, there's something about it that's like dark and unique, but also like whimsical. Like, I was sort of getting like Pushing Daisy's Sweeney Todd at times, which I really loved. And I was just wondering how the vibe kind of came together, and also how you kind of took from the comics but reworked them into the show.
We have an amazing art department, and they nailed it. Costume department, everything, like it. We work with the most talented people, and we feel very, very lucky.
Honestly, the camera department.
The camera department, I'm so glad you noticed because we do pride ourselves in how the show looks.
We wanted to do like the Hardy Boys on acid, and so because the comic books themselves just on the page look almost psychedelic,
Yeah.
like the way that people talk. A lot of that is Neil. But a lot of it is all the artists from the comic books. So we wanted to kind of capture that as much as we could.
You mentioned Neil. I know that he contributed to at least 2 episodes in this season. What was it like working opposite him? What was that experience, having him kind of come in?
Surreal.
Amazing.
Yeah. He's a producer on the show. He's an executive producer on the show. And he saw all of the scripts and he saw all of the cuts. And so, if anything, he was just sort of like the world's biggest cheerleader. Like, we kept making the show stranger, and he kept being like, even more. And we were like, okay, here we go. And the studio and streamer kind of let it happen.
This show also has some loose connections to the Sandman universe that Netflix has been bringing to life. You know, we get to see death and despair this season. I was wondering why those were the right choices to kind of like bring into this world. And also if you like anticipate that, you know, maybe in another season we might see more connections there.
But Despair's the person that I wanted hands down. And she only featured very lightly into season 1 of The Sandman. But I, from the comic books, am obsessed with that character. And it did feel like at Edwin's lowest moment, that would be the point that introducing that character made sense. And we also tried to make her as comic book accurate as we could. So it was a lot of fun. And
for Death, I mean, the whole show surrounds that character. I mean, our boys are running from her the entire season. And so it was natural. We had always written her in it, but like not in a way that you didn't see her before we knew we had permission to use her. So it was always naturally in the pilot there, just before we knew we could use her, you just saw them on the outside hiding from her. And so to be able to actually have her character on screen was huge for us. We were so excited.
And that scene, by the way, is one of the scenes that Neil contributed to, and having his input and his hand in that scene, I think makes it really special.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I'm crossing my fingers for season 2 because I need to know what happens next.
So are we.
Congratulations to you guys. Like, you really did that. I'm obsessed.
Thank you so much.
Consider subscribing if you like my videos, and if you want to talk more TV and movies with me outside of the comments section, check out my Patreon at patreon.com/kmaldo. If you like this one, you can check out more of my videos right over here. See ya!